steady. Thrusters prime. Launching. Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're looking at what I would call the ultimate subversion of the fantasy genre.
Oh, absolutely. It completely flips the script.
Yeah, we are stepping into this incredibly dystopian, soot-choked nightmare of these magical dragon factories. And I know you probably already know the brutal reality that our protagonist Jane faces in this universe.
Right.
But today we are zeroing in on something really specific. We're looking at the exact mechanics of how magic is, well, how it's weaponized as heavy engineering.
It's treated like industrial science.
Exactly. And we're going to explore the grueling physical cost of surviving that system and what actually happens when you are forced to strike a deal with a literal bloodthirsty iron dragon just to buy your freedom.
It really is a staggering narrative to unpack. When you look at how this universe strips away the romanticism that we usually associate with magic.
Like the sparkly wands and spells.
Right. Replacing all of that with the relentless grinding nature of an industrial assembly line. It completely redefines how we view power structures. We are looking at a world where human children and mythical creatures, they're all treated as entirely expendable cogs.
Just meat for the machine.
Literally.
Yeah.
And surviving in a machine like that demands a very specific, calculating brand of ruthlessness.
Okay, let's unpack this by jumping right onto the foundry floor. The sensory details of Jane's daily life are, they're incredibly grim.
Suffocating is the word I'd use.
Yeah, you have this suffocating heat that feels like a physical fist against your chest. The air is thick with smog. The noise of the machinery is deafening. And her coworkers...
The pigmen.
The pigmen, right. They are these tragic creatures whose brains have essentially been baked into ash from decades of exposure to magical fire and molten metal.
It's just a horrifying workplace environment.
And Jane's specific job is to crawl into the pitch-black, claustrophobic bellies of these massive iron dragons. She has to clean their internal pipes with a brush and grease them. It is highly dangerous, suffocating labor.
And you have to remember that physical labor is compounded by this immense psychological weight. The children are supervised by an overseer named Blug.
Right, the troll.
Yeah, he's a heavy, low-browed troll. He actually paints his curled ram horns gold for the new year, which is this weird vanity in such a dark place.
It's so unsettling.
It is. And he rules the factory floor through sheer terror.
Yeah.
Constant physical abuse, constant threats. When you compress children under that much trauma and hopelessness, it inevitably leads to a breaking point.
Which brings us to their desperate assassination plot.
Yes.
Jane's friend is this changeling sprite named Krutoy, and he's essentially this scrappy, rat-like survivor. He convinces the other kids that they have to take Blug out.
They had just had enough.
Right. So they decide to use a voodoo doll made out of old nylon stockings.
Which is such a great, gritty detail.
But to make it work, they need a physical connection. So Krutoy tasks Jane with sneaking into Blug's office to steal clipped fingernails right out of his ashtray.
High stakes for a kid.
Very high stakes. And she actually manages to get them. But the execution of the spell goes horribly wrong. When they burn the doll, Blug is completely untouched, but Jane is struck down with a severe burning fever. So why did it rebound on her so violently?
This is where we see the universe's unforgiving physics in action. We're dealing with sympathetic magic here, but it's treated like a rigid mathematical equation.
Like an exact science.
Exactly. When Jane stole those nails, her hands were full, so she hid them in her mouth. She used her saliva to hold them.
Oh, so her DNA got on them.
Precisely. Sympathetic magic requires a completely uncompromised physical connection to the target. Because Jane's biological material was on the nails, the connection was corrupted.
Wow.
The magic simply followed the path of least resistance and rebounded entirely onto her. You make a calculation error in this world, and the physics of the magic punish you instantly.
And the punishments for trying to break those physical laws intentionally are even more devastating.
Oh, absolutely.
Take the story of Hodulia, or Stilts.
That scene is so hard to read.
It really is. He's a young changeling boy, and he's just starting to grow his adult feathers. He decides he can't take the factory anymore, so he makes a run for the gates. He's just desperate to fly away.
Yeah.
But to get out, he has to cross this security device called the timecron.
The timecron is a terrifying piece of magical security engineering. It's designed to prevent unauthorized exits, not with walls or guards, but by manipulating time itself.
It's so twisted.
If you cross that threshold without clocking out with a proper security card, it rapidly accelerates your aging process.
And the imagery of that moment is haunting. You see Stilts run past the device, and he instantly shoots past puberty. His adult feathers fully come in.
He becomes a grown bird creature in seconds.
Right, and he actually manages to take flight into the sky. For a split second, you think, oh my gosh, he's beaten the system.
But the system always wins.
Yeah. The timecron's effect doesn't stop just because he crossed the gate. As he flies higher, his feathers turn gray, then white. And then he simply crumbles to dust and feathers, drifting right back down to the factory floor.
It is a really bleak visualization of how flawlessly the system is rigged. The desire for freedom is weaponized against the workers.
Yeah.
The factory allows you the illusion of escape just long enough to ensure your absolute destruction. And that serves as a visceral warning to everyone else on the floor. It guarantees compliance through utter hopelessness.
But Jane's failed voodoo heist wasn't a total loss, and it actually gives her a sliver of real hope.
Right, because of what she finds.
Exactly. While she was terrified and hiding in Blug's office, she spotted something in his trash can. It was this massive, heavy book bound in green vinyl, held together by 3 chrome bolts.
A grimoire.
A grimoire. But when she hides in her secret wall space at night to read it, it is not a book of spells at all.
What's fascinating here is how the grimoire functions. It is a highly complex technical manual.
Not what you expect from fantasy.
Not at all. When Jane opens it, she finds compression pressure tables, cylinder stretch coefficients, and incredibly dense electrical wiring schematics for the dragons.
It's wild.
To command one of these beasts, you don't wave a wand or recite a whimsical incantation. You calibrate its crystals and master its potentiometers.
It totally equates magic with heavy industrial engineering. Why do you think the universe frames magic this way?
I think it strips away all the wonder and romanticism we usually expect in these narratives. By framing magic as cold, calculating engineering, it emphasizes the relentless, grinding nature of industrial capitalism and military power.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Magic isn't a gift here. It's an exploitative science used to build weapons of mass destruction. And Jane recognizes this. She studies this manual obsessively because she realizes that understanding this machinery is her only ticket out.
But her daytime reality is still an intense game of survival. She's dealing with literal office politics played out by monsters.
The hierarchy is brutal.
It is. To highlight just how disposable she is to everyone around her, she gets into a rivalry with an older, much stronger girl named Kolstina.
Oh, the roof scene.
Yes. Kolstina decides to assert dominance by hanging Jane by her ankles out of a high window.
Which is terrifying.
Imagine it. You're hanging upside down over a deadly drop. The freezing winter wind is biting into you. Kolstina demands that Jane harvest these sticky toad gull eggs from nests plastered to the outside roof, threatening to drop her if she doesn't comply.
It's sheer bullying, but with lethal consequences.
Exactly. So Jane is terrified. She's frantically scooping out these eggs. And while doing it, she finds something hidden in the toad droppings. An industrial ruby, the size of a thumb joint, used in occult information systems. She manages to hide it before Kolstina pulls her back in.
That moment really underscores Jane's pure survival instinct. Even while dangling from a building facing imminent death, she recognizes the value of that ruby.
Because of the book.
Right. She knows from her obsessive reading of the grimoire that it is a critical component of the magical machinery she's been studying.
And that ruby becomes the key to everything. Because shortly after this, Jane is drawn to the factory's scrapyard. She finds a derelict, rusted dragon hull, half buried in the weeds. Its serial number is 7332.
Melanchthon.
Yes. The moment she steps inside this broken machine, the magic instantly activates. Needles painlessly slide into her wrists to connect her nervous system directly to the ship. A helmet drops down.
The neural link.
Suddenly, she's seeing the world in infrared and ultraviolet, but she's also flooded with the dragon's brutal memories. Telepathic visions of bombing, runs over elven jungles, and the sheer joy of mass destruction.
The interface connects her to a vast, ancient, and incredibly cold intelligence. Jane holds on to this naive hope that the dragon has chosen her to be a pilot.
Right, like a chosen one trope.
Exactly. But the beast bluntly destroys that illusion. It reveals the grim reality of the world's hierarchy. The elves who run this society steal human children for a very specific biological reason. The dragons are made of cold iron, which generates a magnetic field that is absolutely lethal to elves.
Wait, so the elves cannot physically pilot their own weapons of mass destruction? The entire war machine is dependent on child abduction.
Precisely. The logistics of their empire require human blood to operate the interface and bypass the cold iron's lethal effects. The dragon informs Jane she wasn't stolen to be a pilot. She was stolen to be a breeder.
Oh my god.
Her intended purpose is to produce half-human, half-elven children who possess enough human blood to survive the cockpit, acting as a subservient military force.
That is the ultimate commodification of human life. It is chilling, but Jane doesn't break down.
No, she negotiates.
Yeah. The dragon offers her a bargain. It needs 3 keys to fully reactivate and escape. The first is the industrial ruby for its laser targeting, which Jane already has. The second is a copper bullet containing its memory core, which Jane later steals. And the third key is Jane herself, acting as the biological pilot.
This sparks a profound battle of wills. Jane recognizes she is dealing with an apex predator. If she simply hands over the keys, the dragon will use her to escape and then likely discard or kill her.
She'd just be a disposable part again.
Exactly. Her critical thinking here is brilliant. She flatly refuses to start the ignition sequence unless the dragon reveals its true secret name. She bluffs, telling the dragon that the grimoire explicitly requires the true name for the pilot to establish the neural interface.
She creates leverage out of thin air. She knows the dragon views her as disposable, so she invents her own security protocol.
It's incredibly smart.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. This leads us to the explosive climax at the factory. The management has built a prototype mechanical dragon paw to show off to a high-ranking elven inspector.
A big PR event, basically.
Yeah, the whole factory workforce is gathered for the demonstration. Meanwhile, remember Crutoy, her sprite friend? He had been obsessively staring at Jane's grimoire at night, trying to memorize the schematics.
Staring into the abyss of that magical engineering manual without the proper mental shielding left Crutoy deeply vulnerable. The dragon, 7332, reached out telepathically and completely possessed him.
Using him like a puppet.
Exactly. The dragon is using the boy as a pawn to orchestrate a massive diversion.
And the result is absolute carnage. Controlled by the dragon, Crutoy steals Blug's security card and walks right up to the Timecron ward. At the exact same moment, the mechanical paw being demonstrated violently malfunctions.
Right.
It emits this blinding, lethal light that instantly incinerates Blug and the elven inspector into ash. Alarms start blaring.
Tough.
And Crutoy, crossing the threshold with the stolen card, triggers the ultimate security countermeasure.
Because it wasn't his card.
Exactly. His body is instantly destroyed, smoking on the threshold, completely discarded by the dragon.
It is a harsh reminder of the dragon's true nature. It cares nothing for human or sprite life. It only values its own freedom and destructive power.
Amidst this total chaos with the factory catching fire, Jane makes a desperate sprint through the dark yard to the rusted dragon hull. She straps into the cockpit, but the factory's security forces are right behind her.
The cyberdogs.
The cyberdogs with diamond jaws, they are leaping onto the hull, tearing into the metal. And because of the neural link, Jane physically feels the pain of the ship being shredded.
Yet even in a state of sheer panic, feeling the teeth of those cyberdogs, she holds her ground. She refuses to engage the engines.
She forces the dragon to scream its true name through the neural link. Melanchthon, son of Melchisiach, son of Moloch.
She got him.
She did. Only then does she insert the ruby and the copper bullet and recite the ignition codes she memorized from the manual. Recurver. Recuscus. The rusted shell blasts off the asphalt, incinerating the cyberdogs in the exhaust, and they launch into the night sky, escaping the nightmare.
But escaping the physical machinery of the factory doesn't mean escaping the system. Jane's next reality introduces a totally different kind of prison.
Right. She hides Melanchthon's rusted shell camouflaged in a forest and starts attending a local magical high school, passing herself off as a regular woodland sprite. It is high school, but layered over this incredibly dark dystopian reality.
This environment introduces heavy philosophical concepts that contrast sharply with the grim industrialism we just saw. There's a pale-faced alchemy teacher who preaches ultimate statistical nihilism.
Which means what exactly in this context?
He argues there is no fate, no grand design, no external forces guiding them, only random chance, statistical probabilities, and internal drives.
That statistical justification feels less like magic and more like an extreme version of modern bureaucratic coldness. How does Jane reconcile that with her own survival, especially when you look at the terrifying reality of the Willow Queen?
The reality of the school totally contradicts the alchemy teacher's cold logic. The school still practices ancient, ritual human sacrifice.
It's so pissed off.
Gwen, the popular girl who holds the title of Willow Queen, is destined to be burned alive in a wicker cage as an offering to the crow god. And the horrifying part is how the teacher rationalizes it.
He just accepts it.
He accepts this brutal sacrifice as a mere statistical necessity to maintain the psychological order and survival of the masses. It demonstrates that even in a place of supposed learning, the mechanics of their universe demand a blood price.
You trade the physical soot of the factory for the psychological horror of statistical sacrifice. But Jane does find small loopholes in this new world.
She's always looking for the edge.
Yeah. She visits the trading yard, a sprawling magical mall where time dilates. You can spend hours inside and only seconds pass in the real world. She hangs out with a kid named Rat Killer who teaches her to shoplift. And she realizes she has a superpower here.
Yes, she exploits a blind spot in the system.
Mm.
The magical wards on the high-end stores are designed to detect elven or goblin thieves.
Right.
Because the system was never programmed to recognize human blood, Jane can casually steal a hand-painted silk scarf right through the security field.
It's a clever hack, but it's a tiny victory. The illusion of her normal high school life shatters completely in the climax. A man named Dedaloff arrives at the school.
The child catcher.
He is a truant officer, essentially a child catcher, immaculately dressed in a silk suit and leather gloves. And he has tracked Jane down right in her classroom.
Dedaloff employs the exact same rigid rules of sympathetic magic we discussed earlier, but with terrifying proficiency.
Yeah, he doesn't mess up the spell.
He pulls out a dirty brown scrap of the very blanket Jane slept under back at the factory. Using that physical connection, he sucks the air and movement out of the room, completely freezing all of Jane's classmates.
He treats them like paper cutouts. He just stacks them on the floor to get them out of the way. It is such a casual, horrifying display of power.
It really is.
He sits Jane down and calmly explains that her contract with the factory is legally binding. The law is the law, regardless of the fact that she was a stolen child. And worse, he knows about Melanchthon.
He begins reciting override codes from a notebook to remotely shut the dragon down. But Dedaloff underestimates what he's dealing with. Melanchthon isn't just a machine, he's an ancient apex intelligence.
And he's linked to Jane.
Right. The dragon intervenes telepathically, projecting his massive, oppressive metallic presence directly into the classroom to protect his pilot.
This duel of minds is incredible. Dedaloff just laughs at the dragon. He points out that he grounded all the electronics in the room before he walked in. The dragon's magnetic pulses are completely neutralized.
This raises an important question. How do you fight an enemy who has flawlessly neutralized your primary weapon?
You change tactics.
Exactly. You attack the mind. The dragon shifts tactics and poses a riddle to the child catcher.
The dragon's voice echoes in the room. Unseen, unheard, I am death's twin. I am the mind killer, the executioner of memory. Who am I?
And Dedaloff's reaction is very telling.
Dedaloff starts panicking. He screams that he has studied all the dragon weapon systems and such a weapon doesn't exist. There is no countermeasure. And then the dragon delivers the punchline. Just one word. Sclerosis.
It is a brilliant, terrifying application of the dragon's power. It isn't a laser or a bomb. It is a targeted, magical degradation of the brain's physical pathways.
Wiping his mind completely.
Dedaloff's memory is instantly wiped. His mind goes completely blank. He drops the scrap of blanket, the spell breaks, the classmates unfreeze, and Jane simply walks out of the school into the falling spring cherry blossoms, finally truly free.
So, synthesizing everything we've unpacked today, what does Jane's journey really show us about navigating this kind of world?
I think the core takeaway is that knowledge is the ultimate mechanism for survival. Whether Jane is studying the highly technical specs of a magical beast, understanding the rigid physical laws of sympathetic magic, or exploiting the blind spots of security wards, She survives because she learns the underlying architecture of her oppression.
She beats the system by learning its rules better than anyone else.
Exactly. Every single system, no matter how vast, magical, or seemingly flawless, has a loophole if you look hard enough and understand the mechanics driving it.
It is a profound perspective on resilience. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final haunting image from Jane's world. Outside her rusted dragon shell home in the woods, she spends time watching these creatures called Marions.
Oh, the Marians.
Yeah, they are tiny, six-legged descendants of the elves, shrunk down over millennia, and they have been entirely stripped of art, passion, politics, or individuality. They are reduced to blindly, busily building incredibly complex, microscopic societies in the dirt out of pure garbage.
Just using whatever is lying around.
Right. A discarded mayonnaise jar becomes a water tower. A broken pipe stem is a chimney. A rusty iron acts as a road grader.
They are just endlessly working, completely unaware of the larger, terrifying forces moving the world around them.
Right. So I leave you with this thought to mull over. In the grand, complex machinery of our own world, with our endless notifications, our corporate ladders, and our sprawling bureaucratic systems, are we the dragons carving up the sky? Are we the humans fighting desperately to exploit the loopholes for our freedom? Or are we just the Marians, blindly and busily building our little empires in the rusted tracks of forces we can't even begin to comprehend?
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Yes, thank you for listening. And until next time, keep looking for the loopholes and stay insanely curious.